Hello, beautiful sunshines. Welcome to Now That's Love
with your favorite mother-daughter duo, Ashlyn and
Janae where you get to know thyself, love thyself, and be the best version of self.
Because the greatest love story you are ever going to tell is the one you create with yourself every day.
Welcome, welcome.
Hello. Today, we are going to be talking all about 7 signs that you are going through an inner child wound or are dealing with one right now.
Yes. And we are going to start with number 1, and that is a person that's overreactive, being kind of like as a personality type. So a trait that you have that's been subconsciously programmed. So, just before maybe you can have days where you feel overreactive, especially for a woman just before her menstrual cycle starts. You're like, why am I so irritable? But
Right.
It's different where it's like you feel like you're in the personality type that you are reacting to everything. Anything that goes is just a reaction instead of having this conscious knowing that you can just take a moment and say, well, let me think about that, or I'm going to take a breath, or let me walk away from this for a second because I'm not going to react the way that my brain's telling me to react, because that's, like we said, the toothpaste in, toothpaste out. So it's number 1 is the overreaction.
Yeah, not knowing how to manage your emotions is a huge one, because it's basically going back to that little kid self that wasn't necessarily heard. So you can end up throwing tantrums or lashing out during conflict, or even whenever you feel hurt in those triggering moments.
They say that trauma, you can tell a person, say you went through something massive when you were 14 or 12, you can become stuck at that time frame as far as your maturity of how you react to things. And I'll see it all the time, and I've seen it in people, and I've saw it in myself, that from some things that happened when I was 17, I had to do the work. But okay, number 2, attachment issues. You're either over attached, you meet somebody and you're like, oh girl, we're gonna be best friends like right away, or you go on a first date and you're like, I love you, this is amazing, or you overshare. Or you can be an avoidant person where somebody starts to come into your life and you're like, oh, I think I need to self-isolate, or we're good.
You can feel kind of overbearing in those relationships. And even just in our recent couple back podcast just about codependency, if you guys want to learn more about that. But that is also a sign that you have an inner child wound, is that codependency factor of just always trying to serve and help people around you and never being able to pour into your cup or other people pouring into yours.
Number 3, difficulty in relationships with others. You haven't healed from the primary caretaker. So sit back and look at patterns in your past relationships. Do you want to fix others? We talked about that with, like what Ashlyn just said. People pleasing is like the fawning response, where you're people pleasing out of fear of something and maybe even being harmed again. This was one that hit me. So if your family never expressed upset, like you needed to act a certain way, you weren't able to express this real upset, that will stem into being a passive aggressive person. So that's how you'll navigate.
If you catch yourself making like snippy remarks, I feel like that's one thing. Kind of like you said, passive aggressive. You say something and then you walk away as fast as you can.
You struggle to communicate just in a way that could put things forward as far as where you're at with your relationship.
It's kind of like whenever you were little and your mom would start like saying something to you or yelling at you, go to your room, and you'd run up the stairs or you'd run to your room and you'd whisper or yell that one thing, da 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 da, try to get that last say and then close the door. That's exactly the same thing.
It is. It is. Definitely was this in my family, and that's something I had to break free from, because it would get to the buildup of not communicating how I really felt, and then all of a sudden something would snap it, and then I would say something very passive aggressive,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't know it. And once you learn it and you understand, then you can change and do differently. And that will be in our next episode. We're going to show you some awesome, beautiful ways.
Mm-hmm. Visual.
Number 4, we struggle with addiction: food, alcohol, drugs, shopping, gambling, porn, workaholic, to numb out and not face the pain. It's a coping skill, and there's programs out there like CODA for codependency and Alcoholics Anonymous that are wonderful. Therapy, EFT and stuff. Well, we'll talk about the next one, but you don't like the thoughts that are happening that seem to merge up, so you're hurrying them out. Well, if you're checking out with alcohol, you're always checking out with something, then you're not in a place that you can actually go in and do the work and deep dive into it. I see this all the time where it's such an easy escape. But the thing is the body keeps score. So your body's keeping score, and at some point your body's going to break. So as much as you keep on stuffing it down and stuffing it down and stuffing it down, in the most inconvenient time, all of a sudden you're going to have really bad sickness, or you're going to start having some serious disease and different things. And so this is why the inner child wound work is so imperative, because it literally makes your own body suffer, and it's just not a way to live. And so that's one of the reasons we're here.
Yeah, and I feel like too, you can end up, if someone's telling you you need to go get help when you are numbing out, you take that criticism and other people's advice not well at all. You take it very personally, and I can relate to this because someone could tell me something, even just the smallest thing. Like, hey, you need to add a little bit more salt to your broccoli. And I'm like, how dare you tell me?
So true.
What do you mean I need to add more salt? I've spent all of my time making this broccoli. And that's another thing that you can see whenever you're going through the numbing out process. There might be people around you that are saying, hey, you need to get help. But then you take it as like, I'm the victim. I don't need to get help. I'm the one that needed to walk through this. I'm doing it my way.
Right? Yeah.
Ultra
sensitive criticism. Because as a little child, it was just so much, and you didn't have the words at that time. Or if you did try to say something back, you were, or Exactly. So lovely. Unprocessed abuse is number 5. So you have a hard time looking at it. You may have a still image of somebody doing something to you, or like a story where maybe you went up to your mother and really, really needed her in that moment. You needed a hug. And it was something that in your little girl self was extremely traumatic, or even teen girl self, or boy, a mother or father. And in that moment, you just needed their care. And it's a processed image and maybe a little bit of a story, but to take it any further, maybe you feel guilt for being upset with your mother, that actually rage, or maybe it was sexual abuse. That one's very deep for so many people with the wounds of that. And even, let's say someone was sexually abused and went to an adult and wanted and needed their help and their care and their protection, and the adult kind of just put it away, and maybe that uncle still showed up to Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And
this can make you feel very small and unheard. It's like, I feel like whenever I was the kind of like that, where I began to feel small in relationships, where the second that anything was said, I curled up into like my little ball, and it was just like automatically just shut down, cry. I didn't know how to handle what people around me were saying. It was just kind of like, there's like that fight or flight mode. I was the flight mode, where I'm like, I'm just going to start crying and run because I don't want to face this right now.
Yes. Thank you, Ash. Number 6, signs of self-injury. So we will do this because physical pain, the pain, we'd rather feel the physical pain than emotional pain at the time. So we create it ourselves. We numb out with it, and it's a way to feel something. But a lot of people in therapy will express that you can use it to express what you don't have in words. And
Yeah.
also, parent is neglectful, so we injure ourselves. You'll continue the injury because you're in control. You're cutting yourself. You're now taking care of your wound as a parent would need to or should have done,
Mm-hmm.
and you didn't get that, and so you're actually taking care of that wound now. And I felt like that was a real aha moment of why self injury would happen. So
Yeah, coming from personal experience, I felt like back whenever I was going through things about 10 years ago, the reason why I self harmed was because, I mean, I wrote this down in my journals. This is why journals are so powerful. But I wrote down things because I wasn't feeling heard. But I was doing it because I felt so numb and I wanted to feel something. It was something, now looking back on it, I'm like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I ever hurt myself being in the state that I am in now. But during that time, it just was like that automatic feeling of just being able to bring something forward, I guess. Because when you're doing it, you're starting to feel your body. Whenever I felt so numb, I didn't feel my body. I felt kind of like my body was around me out of space, but I was able to kind of bring myself back and be in that moment. And I I feel like self-harm has gotten a lot of negative things about it, and obviously I you should not harm yourself. It's such a sad and hurt place of mind to be in, but I people think that, oh, you do it for attention. I was wearing long sleeves every day. I was not doing it for
actually
attention. You are
hiding.
hurt, and if you are doing that, you need to seek help because you are borderline not wanting to be here in life. It's like you're trying to be close to that point where you're not here anymore, but you're not doing that, but you're borderline there of like, I don't want to be here, but I'm not ready to take that next step. That's basically just your mind telling you to progress forward. Your old self is dead. It is time to arise that inner child out of you, that hurt teenager, wherever you know that, or can maybe you'll end up finding as we go into the next episode where that pain is. You will be able to heal those spots. And that self harm will actually be like, oh, okay, I don't need to do that because now I feel seen, I feel
That's
heard.
it.
You are moving into that next spot of where you need to be. Basically, I forgot which amazing author it was, but he talks about that whenever you have suicidal thoughts or you're harming yourself, basically it's just your brain saying, like, we're dead on this part. We need to move on to the next step. But you're holding on so tightly to who you were in the past, your story, your victim story. And what you need to do is release it, let it go, feel that freaking pain. Not just, let it go. Oh, I'm just going to brush it off my back. I'm saying feel that fucking pain that you feel and release it. And then you'll be able to move on to the progressing steps of loving yourself and being able to hop into that next stage that you need to hop into. But you're not going to be able to hop into that next stage staying where you're at or not progressing forward into where you need to heal and go in your life.
Right.
Can feel
And
stuck.
literally just know that your body will let you know and your mind work together that
Well,
things will just start to rise as you can handle them.
oh
So
yeah.
it's not like everything that's happened to you in your life is going to come crashing down by feeling that pain. It's going to be just in that moment.
Yeah, I agree.
This, like, for me, it was just like a little, I would have a memory of something and I'm like, oh crap. I was grateful for it. And that's just why we
Yeah.
talked so much about journaling. I wrote it down. I needed to make sense of it. Thank you for showing me the truth in this. And then I was like, oh, okay. That would start my little hamster wheel of life of why this
Yeah.
happened. Oh my goodness.
Oh,
Oh,
there you go. There's your hearts.
oh, that's so sweet. So we'll go into number 7. Now, this one for
Mhm.
me was a very big aha moment. These notes come from the top therapists out there. And so this was eating disorders. If you have one now or if you've had one, use food as a thing we can control. Now, we're taught that we know that if you've had an eating disorder, you know that you're trying to control something that you feel out of control of. And it also is a number. But eating disorders can be even over exercising. Okay, so say that you binge eat, then you plan on the next day to go do 4 hours worth of cardio, or you just stop eating, you like lower your calories, or it can be you binge eat and then the next day you don't eat at all, you do a fasting thing. Now, I've been caught up in this through my life, stemming from something that happened at about 16, 17. This is where I started to find that I could control something because my life felt so out of control because of sexual abuse. But with that said, the wiring in the brain before the prefrontal cortex is even fully developed, it's very interesting how you see these patterns keep on showing up. So the biggest aha moment I had, if you're dealing with this right now, is if you have an eating disorder, what it does is it's taking 99% of your energy, your brain flow of like, I keep on thinking about food. I keep on thinking about food. I keep on thinking about food. So now you don't have to think about really where your pain lies, right? Yeah. You're thinking about what you're going to eat next, or how you're not going to eat next, or how your next binge session is going to go, and then you throw up. Or like, now if I'm going to go exercise because I don't deserve this self-abuse. You're going to now go and force yourself to do 4 hours because you did something naughty. It's a childhood wound. It's a teenage rage and moon, but it started in childhood between the ages of 0 to 7, where this started to be a foundational thing.
Yes.
And we are going to talk about this in the next episode about how you can take care of that and start to heal your relationship with food. We think it's about dieting, but a lot of things that I've seen in life is with men and with women, that overeating is stemmed truly from trauma, self-neglect as a child, a lot of bullying, and sexual abuse. So you have this protection with overeating and food, these layers, so now nobody's going to harm you sexually. I would say it's a social, acceptable, more of a numb out, addiction.
Yeah,
food addiction.
I can see that. I can definitely
than alcohol and drugs and gambling and pornography.
Well, I think alcohol's pretty much right there with it, if not more acceptable.
Yeah, because you can closet alcoholic.
You can go to the club every weekend at the age of 22, and everyone's like, oh, that's normal. You're supposed to be living it up. You're supposed to be partying. And then 8 years down the line, or probably even sooner, that they have an alcohol addiction, and they're having to go back to find out where that stemmed from. And a lot of it comes from a lot of, I understand this, because it's just a lot of frustration that you have felt in your childhood of not being seen, unheard, the things that happen to you. Like, we understand that it's a gradual process, and things come up practically every day whenever you're starting to begin that process. And it's, even there's parts in my life now, even still going through it a couple of years ago, there's things in my life now that I look back on, I'm like, oh, wow, I need to feel this. I need to release this. I need to feel it. And I catch myself in little triggers, like we mentioned, of, there's moments where I have, throwing a fit. I catch myself, like, whenever I was in the beginning stages of my relationships, I would slam the door, and I'm like, oh, this is my little girl self trying to shut up from the world, trying to be avoidant. And then I find out where that's stemming from, and it was kind of funny for me whenever I found out, oh, that's my little girl that was slamming the door when I got upset and screaming those last final words.
Right?
Yeah. Well, I felt like the world was against me during that time. So
yeah, when we recognize the patterns that we don't want anymore, then we can break free from them. And that's only by being still and starting to recognize our little hamster wheels. And so what you can do right now, as you'll go into our next one, is that look at the circles of your relationships. What are your relationships with a significant other? What are your relationships with your friendships? What are your relationships maybe with your children? Check out and see your relationships and relationship with self.
I was going to say self-awareness for sure.
Right. It's very interesting how you can start to feel constricted in your heart. So I will be very vulnerable right now. As I've walked through relationships with men, I had the hamster wheel of abusive cycles, and I take full responsibility for everything I've learned afterwards. There were times in this walk that I will tell you I wanted to give up because so much pain rose up. But instead of resisting it, I integrated it in and said, like, just show me. I'm here for it. The more I stopped resisting and letting it bubble up to the surface and
Mm-hmm.
writing things down, the more I could see the voices in the head and what was true and what was not true, what I had made agreements with and what, like, seriously, that's not my voice. I'm not accepting that I'm not good enough just as I
Yeah.
am. I'm okay. And there are different things that are going to rise up. But at the place I am right now, I'm wanting to walk into being the person whole, not in an avoidant place, not in an anxious place. My relationship with food is great and different things.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a lot of constriction of ever thinking that I would allow a man in my life and a lot of work. And I'm not doing this work for a man, I'm doing this for me. But
Mm-hmm.
I thought if he does show up, if this wonderful person shows up, there was a constriction of what it would be like. So feel this for yourself. This is not about me. This is about helping you all. Do you feel constricted that if there was a man that showed up so kind, but really consistently just was in his wholeness and doing his own hero
Mm-hmm.
journey, and you supported each other and you were just like mates, friends, and there was communication where you didn't feel like you couldn't communicate or you had to, either be really anxious because maybe he was this way or that way. There's just this calm, there's this peace. You bring peace and nurturing into his life and your feminine energy, and he just brings in this protective order and then there's joy, there's togetherness. And I thought about this. I sat there for a second, and I've done this several times. If this man wants to walk into my life,
Mm-hmm.
how would I? It's the unknown. We're walking now. I'm walking now into the unknown. And that for a long time was very constrictive because if it was consistently like that, what, you know, how would that
Mm-hmm.
feel? I would I keep on waiting for the bulb to drop? Would I
Mm-hmm.
be able to be vulnerable and just be so
Yeah.
open hearted and like the little innocent girl I used to be with just so thoughtful actions and nurturing, like glommy, like Ashlyn talks about. I'm like really a love bug and I just want to nurture and what
You
can
are.
I, but it's not a codependent style now either. Like I want to be that,
It's
you
like they
know?
scratch your back and you scratch their back, kind of like
Yeah.
Jerome and I,
The,
where whenever he comes
we're
home from work,
equals.
I want to have a good meal for him because I'm like, thank you, you work so hard. Let's eat together. Like our love language
Yes,
is
it's so
food.
fun. I just love it. I love that. And but to let go and walk through the pain body. We have a brain dump books, but we have pain body books and
Mhm.
victim story journals on our Amazon. We'll link them down below. But that was when we'll talk about that in our next episode. Some things that were so effective in
Mhm.
literally loving on and
Oh, we have such
compassion
amazing
and
visuals
forgiving.
too.
Yeah, we
So
have
excited.
wonderful
Yeah.
visuals. We're so excited to share that one with you. But this, for us, like when I went into understanding the inner child, um, what I needed to heal and what I need to go through. It's a walk, it's a process. Things are still going to maybe surface up, but
Oh
they're
yeah.
never, the more work you do, they're never the same intensity. It's just not the
Mhm.
same intensity.
It's
It's
true.
it's like I know I now I have a
Yeah.
program brain that wants
I was gonna
to
say you
work for
start
me.
under. It's kind of like you understand. It's like the first time you go through it, you're leading like the little breadcrumbs on the trail. So
Yeah.
then, whenever you need to go back and kind of go through the same process again, maybe with a different story or a different person, whatever, you have those breadcrumbs that you're able to follow along. You're like, okay, I've done this before. It doesn't hurt that much. And maybe you'll even lead more breadcrumbs because you find out a new little thing like, oh, I didn't know I could take this path down this way. Oh, this might be a little bit of a shortcut. This one's not as deep, or maybe this one's going to be really deep, and I'm going to have to go and do a little horseback riding to go through the stream bed that is pretty deep. I'd
Yes.
also like to add too to what you said about relationships that you're it's a growing process. Everyone that's been in a long-term relationship with your friends or partner, those triggers are going to come up sometimes. And I remember I hit a year with Jerome and I'm like, oh, like all my triggers are healed. Then sometimes you just notice like other little things that go along, and you get to grow together and learn together with a safe, healthy partner, of course, that you feel comfortable of saying, hey, I'm growing through this right now. And they're like, okay, I'm going to give you that space. But sometimes there's not you're not going to enter a relationship and just be healed. And sometimes just, oh my goodness, I'm going to go into this and I'm going to know
Yeah.
exactly the path that it's going to be a
Right.
perfect relationship. And he's not going to have any inner child wounds, and I'm not going to have any inner child wounds. We all
Perfectly said. Perfectly said. That's one of the purposes of having these beautiful relationships. We come together and show us where we can be healed. That where things show up in our life that create pain show us where we're not healed still.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why the inner child work is good. But that's one thing too. It is a walk. And one thing I didn't recognize through so much is that the emotional neglect through childhood is can be very can show up in so many ways in adulthood.
Oh, so
So
much.
I thought when people talked about childhood wounds or childhood trauma, I thought it had to be like, yeah, you lived in a home where your dad beat you, or and that's obviously very traumatic.
Yeah.
Or a mother that was always telling you were stupid or whatever. You know, like you're never going to amount to anything. Like I don't believe personally for me that there's a single person walking this earth that doesn't
We
have
all
some things to
have.
walk
I
through.
mean, even if your mom forgot to pick you up on half days at school, that might be like a small trauma in your life, feeling abandoned. Of my mom did not remember me. Why did she not remember me?
Right. The significance. There are little things, and just walk it through, write it down, process it. But like we said, we're going to show you some awesome, amazing things that so were beneficial for us in our next episode. And but as you walk through it, you start to see, oh, this is why this keeps on showing up in my life. The thing is you have these shackles. You have these shackles by not going through, and you're doing the hamster wheel of life. You're in your own prison of your mind.
Yes.
That you're not letting it surface up. And it's only your thought processes, your brain wiring, your subconscious thinking that keeps on having you go around these circles. And you're the one that gets to set yourself free. You're the one, by doing the work, it's you. It's you, it's you,
And you
it's
get
you.
to have a beautiful relationship with yourself and like with others around you as well. Don't be the sabotager in your relationships. Don't be the person throwing shots or not. Sometimes it can be hard that you're like, I went through so much pain. I need to do this. I deserve this. Um I feel this way because of this. But you can't constantly be in that mode, because then you're hurting people around you. Just because you got hurt does not mean you need to hurt others. Yeah, it bleeds out. You're right.
And you think of the circle you've been given this life, and okay, so we all get to go through trauma or different things. There's little T and big T, trauma. But handing over the rest of your life, and let's say you're still going to hold on to it, the addictions or whatever. Oh my gosh, that you're holding on to something. Oh my gosh, I'll take my fingers right. I'm all about love. If you hold on to it, you're just living each moment with that person in your life as if you've like put them inside your soul, and you're like, yeah, hey, let's hang out together. There's this bond, this thing that you're still saying, like, suck the life out of me. Go ahead and keep on sucking the life out of me. You have one of my veins. And I don't, your body starts to drain in your energies, and you wonder why you're having these off dreams, or why you have to take sleeping medication because your dreams are so awful, or different things. And I've been there.
I've
been there.
Oh my gosh, me and you, whenever we were going through some of the process, we were so exhausted. It can be so draining. I took naps practically every day because going through it you would just feel so drained, and it's a journey and a process going through it. And I remember different things flaring up, and my thought process of, oh my gosh, I didn't know this happened, or I didn't know I felt this way. And you sometimes start making connections. But know that this is why we built this community. This is why we're here. We're here because during that time we had each other. My mom and I, your favorite mother-daughter duo, we had each other. And now we're going to be able to be there for you and show you the process of how we healed during that, and the beautiful visuals that came to us during that time and even a little bit after of how to help you guys. Yeah. I'm honestly so grateful and blessed that I get to be here and show y'all that process, because I know I needed us during that time.
Oh my goodness, yes. You don't have to do this by yourself,
no,
and you
we're
shouldn't
here.
do this by yourself, especially as the depth of it. We're coaches, but we're also this community. We're here just to serve and share our gifts because it's so on our heart. Of like, we remember it's not too far back of the depths of the pain of like facing it and the walk. And each time I was able to understand that, like, listen, if you keep on walking this path, it just becomes a little bit less and less. Now, I haven't dated for a bit, so to date again, I know this already, that there are going to be some things I'll walk through and see about myself that I say, delete.
Yes, but it's that self-awareness and self-recognition that you can go further into those relationships. It's not your ego leading it, like, this is my way or the highway. It's
not at all.
Oh, I recognize that I did this. I recognize that I possibly could have hurt you. Let's work on this together. Let's communicate. That's how you know that you are really starting to heal during that.
One of my biggest mantras was, I was not going to give my life over to anything from my past. I was going to create the new. I was going to create my new avatar, be my own hero, and I was going to come out stomping a victor. And as deeply as I loved myself, as much as I could love in my other relationships, and it was a walk, and it still is. But my goodness, Ashlyn, I want to just give you this capsule and put it in your heart and say, like, this is the vastness that you can experience, and we just know we're going to keep on evolving, and that's why we're doing this love bug thing that I called my kids love bugs, sunshines and love bugs.
I know, we're our little sunshines, but you hold on to your own hand, hold on to our hand, and we're going to start guiding your unprotected, underguided child into the next episode. So follow along, subscribe, heart,
that's love,
and go to @NowThatsLove on Instagram. We're even on Pinterest now, everybody. Woo woo! And as you can see, this is our merchandise right here. Now That's Love. And you can have that awesome merchandise that is on our Instagram, and it's also at Professor Mother, my Instagram. So you get to follow along in our community. We have such amazing reminders to love yourself every day, because now that's love. And the moment is always love with yourself and others around you.
Yeah, focusing on seeing that around you too. We can get caught up in the healing process and what we're talking about here. This is imperative to expand and grow and evolve in your spiritual self, but there's also so much that we're going to share in the next episode that's fun and exciting. So it's not like feeling like work. We're going to show you some things. So stay tuned. It will be episode probably 17 or 18. I think this is number 17.
Oh, I'm so excited.
So much love from our home to yours. Bye-bye.
See y'all on the next episode. Bye-bye.